Hey, Bulls Nation. Thanks again for tuning in to episode 4 of Perimeter D as we recap the Chicago Bulls game that was with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll get into some injury updates as well as Bulls and NBA news. But first up, let's talk about the game that was. The Chicago Bulls went into tonight's game actually making a lineup change that included Ryan Archie excuse me for jacking up his last name. But yeah, Fred Hoiberg made the decision to insert him into the starting lineup, as well as give Shaquille Harrison additional playing time, which turned out to be an actual good decision. Um, the Chicago Bulls, as you know by now, already defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers 99-98. And Ryan Archidinakano, getting his first start of the season, actually did a phenomenal job tonight. You know, the Bulls got off to an excellent start in the first quarter. They were playing as a cohesive unit um, in the first quarter in terms of offensively, and were very active defensively. And at one point, led by double digits. Got off to a phenomenal start, and Ryan, did a good job in terms of knocking down open shots, getting the team into his offensive sets. The Bulls, as a whole, did a phenomenal job of getting, of basically moving the ball, sharing the ball, and basically looking for the best shot, which is something that I've noticed that when we do that, we are very competitive and we do a good job of playing together when we do things like that. But also, one of the things that we struggle with is when we have those moments of playing as a cohesive unit, like in the second quarter, we can tend to deviate from what got us the lead. And going into the second quarter, we had a nice lead, but then again, we got caught up in playing ISO ball. We got caught up in players trying to get theirs as opposed to doing what was best for the team in terms of continuing to move the ball and share the ball. And then ultimately, Cleveland was able to get back into the game. But one of the things that I'm noticing about our guys is that we while it was a good performance by many guys involved, one of the things that I took away from it is that that's something that we're still learning to do, and that's play with a lead. When we get leads, we tend to, of course, allow the other team to get back into it, and a lot of that has to do with we tend to get away from the things that got us the lead. So if we can continue to get better in that aspect, I think we can certainly continue to show improvement, not only overall as a team, but in the win column. Fast forward to the third quarter, Cleveland was able to, make their run, took a lead, and pretty much played on the lead throughout that third quarter, in which they actually won that quarter. Fast forward to the fourth quarter, it was pretty much a nip and tuck game down the stretch. Chicago made some nice plays in terms of Jabari Parker. He was able to um, make some nice plays down the stretch and scoring some shots, scoring some buckets for the Bulls. And as you know, ultimately preserving the victory with a game-winning block shot. Top performances for tonight, of course, was Ryan. He had 15 points. He shot the ball phenomenally. He was 6 of 8 from the field and 3 of 4 from the the 3-point line. Zach LaVine continued to pretty much has scored 20 points or more in all the games that he's been a part of this season. Finished with 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Wendell continued to play solid with 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And in the aforementioned, Jabari Parker had 13 points in the game-winning block shot. But talking about getting back to that lineup change, I thought it was a great decision. That was something that I had been hoping that the Bulls would do, primarily because there was just too much inconsistent play going on with Cam Payne. Um, and I also felt like when we made the addition of Shaquille Harrison, who's a solid defender for a team that struggles defensively, I thought that him getting playing time would definitely help our team, and it did. I mean, he's a guy who picks up the point guard, who extends the defense. full court. He forces them to have to work to get up the court and work to get their team into their offensive sets. Um, and he also is he puts pressure on the ball even in the half court as well. So he was able to get 3 steals that resulted in the Bulls getting out in transition, and it was just a solid performance by the Bulls tonight. So hopefully we can build on this performance as we take on the Dallas Mavericks Monday night. Um, all right, so a few days ago, Chicago Bulls reevaluated Denzel Valentine, and unfortunately, he actually had a setback. The plan was to reevaluate him in 2 weeks, and then the 2 week time frame was actually last week. Unfortunately, the ankle injury that he's dealing with right now um, hasn't gotten better. So because of that, instead of going on and on and on with the every 2 week reevaluation plan, the Chicago Bulls have ultimately decided to just render him out indefinitely until the ankle is completely healed and he's 100% ready to go, which I think is actually a good decision. Now, the big news in the NBA of the weekend, of course, was the Jimmy Butler trade to Philadelphia. Finally, I think I should title this episode "Finally" because finally the Bulls made the decision to change the lineup in the point guard, and finally Minnesota has traded Jimmy Butler to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Jared Bayless, and a second round pick in 2022. Now, as far as who won or who lost this trade, we'll find that out as both teams finally get together, make and play games to make that determination. But based on the fact that the trade has occurred, I think it was a win-win for everybody involved. Minnesota rids itself of the dysfunction that has plagued them throughout this season. It gives players like Karl Anthony Town and Andrew Wiggins a vote of confidence that it is now your team. And in games that Karl Anthony Towns has played this year without the presence of Jimmy Butler, he's looked like an all-star. And in games where Jimmy Butler has been present, sometimes he's looked like, why did they take him number one again? Yeah, they kind of look like that sometimes. So now that Jimmy Butler is gone and locker room is cleared and they can focus on just getting better as two young stars in the making, we'll see what Minnesota will become. I like the addition of Saric and Robert Covington because it basically gives them shooters. You know, these are guys who can spread the floor, open up space for a guy like Wiggins who can get to the basket, a guy like Karl Anthony Towns who can score in a variety of ways. What I also like about the trade is that it puts Minnesota into the new age because they've kind of played dark age basketball and trying to, you know, go back to 2011, and the NBA has moved on past that time. So this trade actually gives them two guys who gives them an opportunity to space the floor and basically redesign the team to build around those two guys. As far as what it does for Philadelphia, it certainly puts them in a higher standing in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're like a third seed. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the standings. But anyway, it definitely gives them a guy who's a two-way player to go along with an Embiid and a Ben Simmons. I think Jimmy will fit in great here because Ben Simmons is not a guy who needs to score to be effective. So it doesn't create any tension in terms of scoring or anything like that. Um, but it's going to be fun to see how both teams navigate going forward. For Philadelphia, it's going to be interesting to see if they can make up some ground in the Eastern Conference and actually solidify themselves as the team to beat in that conference. But only time will tell who was the true winners of this trade. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. Again, as always, thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and good night.